Good evening, everybody. This is a wandering author here, your favorite aspiring historian, and I'm ready to remind you that we're all the authors of our own lives. My message remains the same: spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. Yesterday, we spoke about the war that was going on in the Hellespont, those narrow straits where Athens got most of their grain. And today we're going to start talking about Sicily and Syracuse. And these are separate sections of Greek history, basically. There's mainland Greece, and then there's these guys. So, this is my own writing, so I apologize if it's not perfect. 8th century Sicily was home to two major native populations and a handful of minor ones. And Syracusan history is a separate chapter of Greek past, and it involved lots of conflict, commerce, and trade with the Carthaginians on Africa's northern coast. Syracuse and other Sicilian Greek cities were highly unstable societies and frequently found themselves in a state of internal turmoil. Greek settlers expelled the island's original inhabitants on Ortygia. I'm not the best at pronouncing some of these names. And by the mid-6th century, they linked it to a causeway. Syracuse's foundation story involves two men traveling to the oracle at Delphi to inquire about founding overseas settlements. And the oracle asked the two men whether they wanted health or wealth. The founder of Syracuse chose wealth. On the island, most inhabitants were enslaved, and only a small handful of citizens made up the citizenship, making Syracusan society appear remarkably similar to other Greek city-states on the surface. However, the Sicilian Greeks were plagued by internecine feuding more persistently than their neighbors, which is just fighting between each other. Tyrannies remain common throughout their history, indicating weaker democratic roots than their mainland counterparts. The Gemorai, or the landowners, ruled for a long time and were descendants of the land's original settlers. Sicilian and southern Italian Greeks never developed their own games, preferring to frequent mainland Greece despite their ostentatious wealth. So the Sicilian and southern Italy Greeks never host their own Olympics, even though they had a ton of wealth. And the Gemoroi, or landowners, would be replaced briefly with a democratic constitution of some sort, and this would be again overturned by exiled aristocrats in 485. So they had a short-lived democracy. And then a man, Jalon's Dinomenid dynasty will only hold power for 20 years, but in that time, he'll transform Syracuse into Sicily's cultural and military powerhouse. Sicilian tyrants rarely do things by halves, and many of them instituted massive population relocation programs. 30 such programs are recorded in the historical record, and some towns would simply disappear upon a Sicilian tyrant's word. So imagine if you had like a president that was just like, I don't like this town. Everybody has to move. Except not a president, a tyrant. So that's what the people of Syracuse and Sicily would have to deal with. By 460 BCE, all the Sicilian tyrants would be swept away and become the victims of a civil war and internal dissent. The Syracusan democracy had a legislative assembly, so it wasn't. It was kind of similar to what the other Greeks did, but Aristotle hesitated to call the Syracusan constitution a democracy. Syracuse alone suffered 20 serious uprisings in its history, and they had 2 or 3 bouts of democratic reform. In comparison, Athenian democracy was incredibly stable, which begs the question, why the difference? Athenian leaders like Solon and Cleisthenes would rise above the noise and fight for the common good. Which reminds me, I'm going to come out with something about Solon, the great lawmaker, here in the near future. Generally, Athenian secretaries emphasized pro-social competition, like seeing who could be the most philanthropic. Athenian society emphasized pro-social competition, like seeing who could be the most philanthropic. Respect for the common good and a deeper sense of community stabilized the political scene in Athens more than elsewhere. So, basically, the wealthy and powerful people in Athens seemed to care more about the community than the wealthy and powerful people over in Sicily and Syracuse. The gulf between rich and poor grew so wide in Syracuse that building a broad-based consensus became impossible, and at key points in the city's history, the rich were even physically separated from the poor. Forced population relocations made it difficult for the destitute and prosperous to communicate, which further blurred their cohesion. And then tomorrow we'll go over Socrates and the 30 tyrants. But that right there was Syracuse and society. It was highly unequal. There was a ton of wealth, but most of that wealth fell into a few hands, and it led to an unstable society as a result. May that have some pertinence to our own society in modern times? I don't know. I'll let you make the conclusions. But that's all I've got for you guys tonight. This is the Wandering Author here, reminding you that we're all the authors of our own lives. As always, my message remains the same. Spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. What are y'all doing in order to inspire, uplift, and empower your local community today? Because this world isn't changing unless we all do our part. You can count on me to do mine daily. Till next time, I love y'all.